Is one of your New Year's resolutions to read more this year? I got you covered. In this episode, I am sharing my list of 12 STEM professional development books for 2024 that you definitely want to read this year. Welcome to the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast, a show that'll help you with lesson ideas, systems, and actionable tips to apply to your classroom. I am your host, Naomi Meredith, a former classroom teacher turned current STEM teacher and coach. With over a decade of experience teaching and a master's degree in STEM leadership, I am here to coach you throughout the year to help you gain back more time to create innovative experiences for your students. Grab your earbuds and let's get started. Over on Instagram at Naomi Meredith _, I got an extremely kind message from one of you, and I wanted to read it here on the podcast. It's kind of like a way for me to keep track and remember these special moments. This is what this teacher wrote to me. I have really appreciated your support. You have been my biggest supporter and have helped me so much. I am loving STEM and just got a bunch of praise from my admin today with how things are going. I have shared what I've been working a lot on with your professional development, and they love that your lessons are higher level. You know who you are that wrote this, and it absolutely made my day. So thank you so much, my teacher friend. The goal with this podcast and all of the resources that I create is to make a positive difference in STEM education for you and your students. And I know this, and that is why I am doing this. But when you guys write to me or leave reviews on the podcast or share with me all of these things, that absolutely blows my mind that things are really working. And I know it's going to work, but it just like makes my day and just hearing from you. And I appreciate it so much. I read a lot of books, and I mean a lot. I am such a nerd and enjoy reading more than I like watching TV. Now, my teacher, Honey, and I do watch some shows together, but when it's up to me, when I'm by myself, I'd rather sit back and read a good book rather than watch some TV. And I was even the same way as a kid. On my Goodreads account, which is an app, I think it said that my end of the year book count for 2023 was 77 books. And I'm usually reading 3 books at a time, an educational book, a business book, and one just for fun. And I do mix in audio and physical books. And so that's how I can get all of that reading in, which I absolutely love. So I am excited to be sharing with you my 2024 STEM professional development book list. And you can definitely read all of these on your own. And these are books that are excellent for you to keep going with your STEM professional development. But it's way more fun to read a book with a group and be able to talk about it. And this list that I am going to be sharing with you are the books that we're going to be reading inside of my STEM teacher bookshelf community. So, of course, in the group, you have that private teacher community to discuss the books and other STEM topics that are related to the things that you are reading and what you're facing daily. But there's also more to it. You also will get a monthly pacing guide that will help you easily read the book within a month, and also a curated workbook that I put together that applies to each book that focuses on ideas in that, and also help you brainstorm new ones to apply to your classroom. So it just gives you that tangible takeaway to really dive into each of the reading. There are often bookmarks related specific to the book that you can print out and create any related classroom handouts if it works with that book. Shareable quotes for social media, because we know that we love to share quotes as teachers. Also, a monthly live call with me and other teachers to connect with, and opportunities to share the book with others and help you save on your membership. And a new bonus within the STEM teacher bookshelf community is something that I added, but are a unique collection of Lego education building directions. And right now there are a bunch for Lego We Do 2.0. So that's just a fun bonus that I've added at the end of 2023. For this episode, I'm going to share about each book, a short little description, and why I chose this book. This list took me a while to put together. I've been creating a running list over the last year and previewing different books and really deciding what would be a best fit to create a cohesive book list for the 2024 year. All of these are going to be linked in the show notes, so don't feel like you have to memorize them and pause and write them all down. You can see all of them listed out for you, and I even created an Amazon shopping page where all of the books are there for you if that's how you purchase your books. So don't feel like you have to write this all down. I got you covered. All right, so I'm going to go in order based on the order that we are going to read them throughout the year. And of course, you can read them at any time, but I did put them in specific months for specific reasons. So let's get into it. Our first book is Visual Thinking by Temple Grandin. And this book, a friend recommended to me. And funny enough, Temple Grandin is based in Colorado, which is where I live. I have not met her yet in person, but I absolutely love to. And when I read this book, I listened to the audio, and it's actually not read by the author. And she gives an explanation at the beginning, which is really interesting, where she just really didn't want to read it. And if you don't know about Temple Grandin, she is a person with autism, but she is an awesome autism advocate and how people with that ability is able to do great things. And she also advocates for animal rights, and many of her inventions has to do with that. So she's amazing. She is absolutely brilliant. And in this book, Visual Thinking, she talks about how people think differently and how everyone has the capacity to think visually. But for some people like her, this is their greatest strength, and this is amplified for them. And she relies heavily on it to communicate and think through problems. She even talks about how visual thinking is an asset in STEM careers. And when people work together as a team, having this ability where everybody thinks differently and being able to see the problem from different angles is a really huge asset and definitely needed. And I love this book for our starting off the year because it's really awesome to hear from other perspectives and a voice from an author who is using what they were born with to be an advantage to what they are doing, but also advocating for how it is a strength and how she uses it as her strength and how others should use it as a strength. And it's just an excellent, excellent audiobook for this time of year to kick off the year. Our second book is AI for Educators by Matt Miller, and AI stands for Artificial Intelligence. And I know that AI is a big buzzword right now, but for good reason. And it is something we shouldn't shy away from as educators. What I like about this book is that it actually is pretty current. Matt came out with this book fairly recently. And it also talks about how AI impacts education and also how we can see it from a teacher's lens. Especially in the STEM field and being an educator in this realm, we shouldn't be shying away from new technology. As teachers, we shouldn't be shying away from new technology anyway, but especially in a STEM field, you got to brave it and try it out. And we should be educating ourselves about it so we can educate others. It doesn't mean that you have to be an expert about AI or all the new technology, but we do need to be able to prepare our kids for jobs that don't exist. And thank you to all of my past teachers who helped prepare me to go into STEM education. I had no idea. I had no idea as a kid I would be a podcaster, but thanks to my teachers, they helped me out. Our third book for the year, and just getting into that springtime, is Mathematical Mindsets, the second edition by Jo Boaler. This book is all about that M in STEM. And there are some really cool ways that it will get your wheels turning of how you can apply this into your lessons. I read the first book of Mathematical Mindsets years ago and even attended a conference that Jo hosted at Stanford when I was a third grade teacher. I got picked by the admin at the time and all of that. And I actually did meet Jo, which was pretty amazing. And it absolutely changed her book, and also this conference absolutely changed the way that I taught math and also helped me as a teacher the way how I can show students to think about the way they think about math and how they should have that positive mindset towards it. You can totally read the older version. I actually still have my older version and it's all written up with notes, but there are some good updates as well that will help you think through the math component in your STEM lessons and how to get students in that, mathematical mindset. Moving into our fourth book, we have Engaging Young Engineers by a collection of authors. So we have Angela Stone McDonald, Kristen Wendell, and Ann Douglas and Mary Lou Love. And what I hear a lot from STEM teachers is that they really struggle with engaging their youngest learners in the STEM space and what to actually do with them and how to have effective lessons. And so this book is really beneficial because it has those tips and tricks to help you rethink how you're going to teach STEM to your younger students and really help them shine in this space just as much as those upper elementary students. So definitely it will give you that boost, especially at the time of year that we're reading this, where you're like, I just don't know what to do with the little kids anymore. Well, this book will have you covered. Going towards the end of the school year, we have the book Creating Innovators by Tony Wagner. And this also has an audio component, which I thought would be a really good refresh for the end of the year going into the summer. I really like listening to audio all the time, but especially certain times of year, audiobooks work really well when you feel like you just can't sit down and read. So if that's one way you want to read more books this year, get into audiobooks. It is a skill you have to practice, but the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. In this book, Creating Innovators, it gives real examples from people who have made an impact in the STEM field and what characteristics they have as an actual innovator. And in turn, this can help us as educators provide those opportunities for our own students. So a really good way to round out the year. And this book and the next book really do go hand in hand. There are some overlaps, but also there's even more to it. And the next book is Thrivers by Michelle Borba. And continuing with that same theme of creating innovators, it's going more into that growth mindset. And I like in the description for this book, it said that how thrivers are different. They flourish in our fast-paced, digital-driven, but often uncertain world. Why? Which is an excellent question. And so I love how they're taking a look at those qualities of these type of students and people and how we can cultivate that for our own students. So a really great way to dive into that. All right, the next one, jumping into that summertime, is STEM, STEAM, Make, Dream by Chris Emdin. And this book examines the needs for the arts, including culture, to serve as an anchor for our instruction in the STEM space. And it also talks about the ways and the needs for having making or that maker space, our hands-on creation, to really establish that relevance in learning. And this book is super powerful, but also perfect for if you are at a school or school district or have admin who are hesitant to add STEM into your school or thinking about adding STEM or even thinking about taking it away, this book will support all the reasons why you need STEM and how it is beneficial in today's world. It's not just playing with cool tools, it's doing something more than that. So this is a really powerful book to support that evidence. Moving into the end of summer, we have Launch by John Spencer. Launch is a really great way to teach problem solving and critical thinking, and it's similar to the engineering design process. I read this book when I first got into the STEM space, and while I didn't use the actual launch cycle, there are some elements that can definitely apply and connect with the engineering design process. I also have a friend who was teaching at a school where they all used the launch cycle as a way to problem solve. So whether or not you use it in the specific cycle it mentions or taking bits and pieces from it, there's a lot of great information as it pertains to problem solving in projects in general. All right, the next set of books, I got really creative with this book list, and For that second half of the year, when it gets into the back to school time, I chose books that would be really fun and light for you to read as a teacher. But also, there are things in these books that you can pull and use with your own students because they are also written for kids, but it has that good balance where it's engaging for adults. So this next one is one that I loved when I taught third grade, and it's still definitely relevant today, but it's The Kid President's Guide to Being Awesome by Robbie Novak. And I know Kid President is grown up. He's probably in college now, but your students don't need to know that. They can think Kid President's still a kid. And the book is really, really fun and encouraging. It's not one that you have to read from cover to cover. It has a lot of images and short stories that are inspiring. And even just the intro about Kid President himself and the actual child who plays Kid President has this whole journey of growth mindset as it pertains to his health. So I'm not going to give that away. Pick it up, join our group, read it. It's so great. Next to that, still that back to school time, is I actually have 2 books by the same author on our book list this year. And this book is Calling All Minds by Temple Grandin. And this is, again, another book that you can share with your students. And it is made for young learners. And I really like to learn from so many different avenues. And one way I like to learn is to hear how others speak to children about complex topics. I did this when I went to Chicago. I took a 3D printing class made for kids, and I just really wanted to hear the language that they used with kids when it came to explaining how 3D printing works. So similar vibes for this book. It is made for kids, but it's going to help give you the language when it comes to teaching them about being an innovator. All right, finishing off our list, we have The History of the Computer by Rachel Ignotofsky. And this is, again, one that is made to be read with adults and children. And the illustrations are absolutely beautiful, but they are well researched. And the author, Rachel Ignotofsky, I actually had on the podcast, and she is extremely passionate about what she does. And not only is she an amazing artist, but she researches so much for her books to make sure that they are accurate in not only the words, but also the pictures. And so this is such a boring topic, the history of the computer, but it's put in a very fun way that is comprehensible and fun. And so I picked this book for November because then you can read it and be prepared for Computer Science Week at the beginning of December. And then finishing off our year is a very fun book, an excellent audiobook. It is not read by the author, but the person who is reading it is amazing. And Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull and Amy Wallace is that Ed is the president of Pixar Animation and Disney Animation. And when I listened to this, I was building and taking apart computer carts in 2020, and I was super engaged. And not only did I love hearing the history of Pixar and how it was created and invented, and not everything was figured out right away, but it's good to hear these types of stories as a teacher to help build your background knowledge and also share an example to your students. So there you have it, our full list for STEM professional development books for 2024. I'm not going to read them all out loud again. Remember, go and check out the show notes. They are all listed and linked for you. And you can read these all on your own this year, but it's way more fun in a group. Trust me. And I invite you to join my exclusive STEM Teacher Bookshelf community where we will read these all together and also have those fun bonuses to go along with it. Happy 2024, and I am excited to see you all in the membership and also all of the more things to come. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast. I would love to connect with you over on Instagram at Naomi Meredith _ or send me an email to elementarystemcoachpodcast@gmail.com. Also, make sure to check out my website, naomimeredith.com, to see all the show notes from today's episode and shop my K-5 STEM resources. Any questions you have, needs for resources, or ideas for episodes, get in touch. I'll talk to you soon.